There is a specific moment most people have encountered, watching someone they love grow ill, or lying awake at 3 in the morning, where the thought arrives with unusual clarity. I am going to die. When I do, I will cease to exist. The fear that follows is the logical conclusion of a premise almost everyone holds without examination, that I am this physical body, and when the body stops, I stop with it. This premise has a name in Vedanta. It is called Dhatmavada, the belief that the body is the self. On this view, consciousness is something the body produces, the way a flame produces light, and when the body stops, the person who was aware, who remembered, who loved and feared and planned, is annihilated. The popular articulation is precise, Deha nashe dehi nasha. When the body perishes, the one who inhabited it perishes. This is the background assumption of most people who have never been given a reason to question it. The fear that arises from it is not a personal weakness or a failure of courage. The tradition traces that fear back to its root, mutual superimposition, taking the body's mortality and attributing it to me. The body is born on a particular day, grows, ages, and dies. The error is the unexamined claim that says, I am born, I am aging, I will die, as though the I and the body are the same entity. Vedanta's entire treatment of death begins by pulling these two apart and examining whether the equation holds. It does not, but that cannot be declared. It has to be shown. Vedanta begins with a precise question. What exactly is it that dies? The Sanskrit technical definition is stula sukshma sharira vyoga, the separation of the subtle body from the gross physical body. Nothing in that definition says destruction. Nothing says cessation. Death, by this account, is a disconnection, not an ending. Confusion about death is almost always confusion about what I refers to. The physical body already has two names in the tradition that signal its nature. It is called sharira, that which is subject to disintegration, and deha, that which is fit for cremation. These names carry the truth. This body was always going to end. The gross body, stula shariram, is built from food, sustained by food, and returns to earth. Lord Krishna makes this explicit in the Bhagavad Gita. Just as a person discards worn-out clothes and puts on new ones, the conscious entity gives up a worn-out body and takes on a new one. The clothes do not define the person wearing them. Their tearing and replacement is not the person's death. The body is the most visible thing. What others see, what the mirror shows, what the doctor measures. Its dominance in experience makes it easy to mistake for the substance of what we are. Visibility is not identity. The physical body is inert matter. Jadam, it does not generate consciousness any more than a mirror generates light. The mirror reflects light. Damage the mirror, and the reflected image disappears. But the light source is unaffected. The body is the reflecting medium. When the subtle body departs at death, the physical frame becomes insentient, not because consciousness was destroyed, but because the medium through which it was expressed has left. Maranam, death, is the moment the subtle body quits the physical frame because the prarabdha karma has been exhausted. The body, no longer animated, disintegrates. The subtle body continues. The individual, as a conscious entity, is uninterrupted. The Vedantic model is precise. Every individual consists of three bodies, not one. The first is the stula shariram, the gross physical body, flesh, bone, blood, and tissue you can see and touch. This is what lies in the hospital bed, what is buried or cremated. Everything you experience as your life, your memories, your habits, your loves and fears, your reasoning and your intuitions, none of that lives in the physical frame. It lives in the second body. The subtle body, invisible to the eye and weightless, is the actual instrument of all experience. It comprises the mind, the intellect, the organs of perception and action in their subtle form, and the vital airs that animate the physical frame. When you think, it is the subtle body's intellect working. When you feel grief, it is the subtle body's mind responding. When you sleep and dream, The subtle body is fully active while the gross body lies still. This body is what does the living, and it is what survives physical death. The third body is the Karana Shariram, the causal body. If the gross body is the tree's trunk and branches, the causal body is the root system hidden underground. It stores the accumulated karmas of all previous lives in seed form, along with the deep tendencies and impressions that shape each new birth. Even if the trunk is cut, the tree reappears from the root. The causal body is why the cycle continues. At death, the subtle body and the causal body depart together with Siddhabhasa, the living light of awareness as it functions through this particular mind. The gross body is left behind because it was always temporary office space. Its job was to provide a physical setup for a specific round of experience and karma exhaustion. When that round is complete, the office is vacated. The individual moves on. A company employee occupies an office for years. The building, the desk, the equipment. When the posting ends, the employee does not become the building. They pack their files, their expertise, their habits of working, and move to the next posting. The building is left behind, perhaps demolished, but nothing essential to the employee was in the walls. The gross body cannot account for why children are born with different temperaments from the same parents, or why some individuals display gifts that no environmental explanation satisfies. The causal body, carrying tendencies from prior existences, is what Vedanta points to as the explanation. At the moment the physical body stops functioning, something precise occurs, not random, not chaotic, but an ordered withdrawal. When prarabdha karma, the portion of accumulated actions that gave rise to this particular body in life, is exhausted, the physical frame can no longer serve as a functioning instrument. At this antakala, the time of death, a specific vital force called udana vayu, the upward moving breath, takes charge. Among the 5 vital airs that regulate different bodily functions throughout life, udana alone is responsible for this final act, the systematic withdrawal of the subtle body from the physical frame. Throughout life, the subtle body has been spread across the physical frame, animating the eyes to see, the ears to hear, the hands to act. At death, udana begins gathering these faculties inward. The senses retract. The organs of action fall silent. The various vital airs managing digestion, circulation, and movement are collected and consolidated. The gathering point is the hridayam, the heart, which functions as a departure terminal, the place where everything assembles before the final exit. The subtle body, with its entire apparatus of mind, intellect, senses, and vital airs, assembles at the heart. From there, udana carries it out through one of the body's exits. The physical body, now vacated by its animating principle, grows cold and inert. It has not died because the person has ceased to exist. It has died because the person has left. A caterpillar moving along a blade of grass does not simply fall off when it reaches the tip. It stretches forward, secures a firm grip on the next blade, and only then releases the one it stood on. The jiva, the individual soul, operates with a similar continuity. The next body is already being drawn toward it, shaped by the karma it carries, even as the current body is being vacated. The departure is not a falling into void. It is a transition, already aimed. The wind carrying fragrance from a flower makes the same point from a different angle. The wind is not the flower. It does not become the fragrance, but it lifts the fragrance from one location and carries it to another. The subtle body, carrying the individual's accumulated tendencies, desires, and karmic residue, is lifted by udana and transported. What it carries defines where it goes. The subtle body's direction of exit is not random. The texts speak of different exits corresponding to different destinations, shaped by the quality of the departing individual's final mental state and accumulated karma. The mechanics of departure are not separable from the karma that drives them. Udana does the lifting, but karma sets the coordinates. The answer to where the subtle body goes is karma, not in the diluted sense of vague cosmic balance, but in its precise Vedantic meaning. Every action, physical, verbal, and mental, generates a result that must be experienced. The law has no exceptions. What is done must be exhausted. The subtle body, carrying the unexhausted balance of a lifetime's actions, cannot stop. It must continue until the account reaches zero. This is punarjanma, rebirth, defined not as a mystical journey, but as the technical event of the subtle body associating with a new gross physical body. Three distinct categories of karma must be kept clear. Sanasita karma is the entire accumulated storehouse from all past lives. Held in the causal body, a vast account containing every transaction across every life. From this storehouse, a portion is selected to govern a specific life. This is prarabdha karma, the fructifying karma that has already begun yielding results. You are living through your prarabdha right now. This body, this family, this set of circumstances. When the prarabdha of the current life is fully exhausted, the physical body drops. The remaining sanasita balance cannot vanish. If actions could be performed and then erased without bearing fruit, the moral structure of the universe would collapse. The scriptures call this flaw krita vipra nasha dosha, the destruction of acquired karma. To avoid this, the subtle body takes a new body, generates new prarabdha, and continues the process of exhaustion. The subtle body departs invisibly, carrying the unexhausted sanasita balance forward. What is invisible gets forgotten, but it does not vanish. Two factors determine the nature of the next birth. First, the remaining sanasita karma, its dominant tendencies, its unfulfilled desires, its uncompleted patterns, shapes the field of possibilities. Second, the state of mind at the final moment of life acts as the entry point. The last thought, the dominant preoccupation at the moment of death, influences which portion of the karmic account gets activated for the next life. The tradition treats the final moments as spiritually significant because the departing mind carries its last impression forward as the first seed of what comes next. The jiva, the individual soul conditioned by the three bodies in their accumulated karma, is driven by vasanas, the latent impressions and desires stored in the causal body, and projects and secures the next birth before the current body is fully released. There is no gap, no waiting room, no suspension. The individual does not choose this consciously, the karmic weight chooses for it. Every life generates new actions, agami karma, that replenish the sanasita account, ensuring the cycle does not wind down on its own. The ignorant person living without self-knowledge adds to the account while drawing from it. The balance never reaches zero because the deposits continue. The cycle, subtle body acquiring gross body, living, exhausting prarabdha, dying, traveling with remaining sanasita, acquiring another gross body, continues indefinitely. There are two kinds of death in Vedanta. One is what every person undergoes. The subtle body departs the physical frame and travels toward a new birth, carrying its karmic weight forward. The other is what only the wise undergo, and it is not a journey at all. The ignorant person dies and the subtle body moves. The wise person dies and the subtle body dissolves. The cycle has an exit, and that exit is located not in a place or a time, but in knowledge. A wise person, called a jnani, one who has realized their true nature as the immortal self, does not accumulate new karma. Knowledge itself burns the storehouse, the sanasita karma, the vast accumulated balance from all prior lives stored in the causal body, is neutralized by self-knowledge the way fire reduces wood to ash. What remains is only the prarabdha, the karma already in motion, already expressing itself as the current body and life, and that exhausts itself naturally through living. When the body falls, there is nothing left to take the journey. No karmic balance demands a new account. No unresolved tendencies require a new vehicle of experience. The state produced at the death of a jnani is called vadahamukti, disembodied liberation, parantakala, the final death. The subtle body, with nowhere left to go and no force compelling it forward, dissolves into the macrocosm. The causal body releases its seed residue. The individual form returns to the total from which it was never truly separate. Moksha is not a new destination. It is the ending of the compulsion to have a destination. Consider an iceberg. Floating in the ocean, it has a distinct form, a boundary, an identity separate from the water around it. But the iceberg is already water. Its apparent separateness is nothing more than a temporary state of the very substance it seems distinct from. When the sun warms it, The iceberg does not travel anywhere. It melts. The water that appeared to be a separate, bounded thing merges back into the ocean without the slightest journey. The dissolution and the merger are simultaneous. This is Vidya, the jnani's individual existence, long recognized by the jnani themselves as a temporary form of the total consciousness, ceases to hold its separate shape. The boundary dissolves. What was the jnani is now indistinguishably the whole. The jnani's death is free immortality, not the continuation of a traveler, but the ending of the journey altogether. The body's dissolved, the karma's exhausted, the cycle closed, something must remain. The jiva dissolves into the macrocosm. But what is the macrocosm itself? And more pressingly, what were you through all of this? That was never the subtle body, never the traveler, never the one waiting for liberation.